Happy to do my Facebook Live and talk about my class on Skillshare.com. Live Your Bigger, Better Life, 6 tools to help you put aside the stories that keep you playing small. And I want to get into a summary of what the 6 tools are. We'll get to them in a second. The tools real quick are context, faith, gratitude, terms, ownership, and changing your relationship with money. Yeah, that's a big one. We'll get into that. And I'll just give a very quick summary of each in the time that I have on the Facebook Live this morning. Definitely go to my Skillshare.com class so you can see the full video presentation. One of the things that's been really interesting is that as a result of that Skillshare.com class, a couple of other platforms that are creating audio content similar to Skillshare's have reached out as well. Listenable is one of them, and another, Scribd, SCRIBD, which is a robust website for audio material of all kinds, audio books, audio programming, podcasts, a real robust whole host of things. They're also creating a Scribd Coach page that's going to have, I presume, a lot of other coaching materials, as well as my class, 6 tools to help you live your bigger, better life. Now, before we get into what those specific tools are as well, I want to talk a little bit about some background information we need. For instance, the stories that we tell to ourselves, I think, are really the most powerful ways we defeat ourselves, we hold ourselves back, we keep ourselves playing small. And so if we want to live that bigger, better life, whatever that is, and in just a minute, stay with me, I'm going to get to what that is, you've got to be able to manage those stories. And I want to say I'm using manage very deliberately, because in my experience, those stories never go away. Whatever our negative self-talk is, it's there, and it can come back, it can come raging back. And I think it's unreasonable to imagine a life where they're just not going to exist. But what I have found, and this is really important, at least to me, and I hope you find it as well, is that we can do 2 things. With practice, we can actually turn down the volume on those stories as we use some of the tools I'm going to talk about. And even more importantly, we can have an argument for those stories. It's almost like in a courtroom. You know, the prosecution can say whatever they want. We procrastinate, we're slow, we go off half-cocked, we have more ideas than we can follow through with. Newsflash, I'm letting you into a little window into some of the stories I tell myself. Love to hear what yours are. Leave them in the comments. Let's talk about this, because that's one of the other things we can do, by the way, is by talking about our stories, we get them out of our heads. And we get reality from other people who say, really, Mark, is that really how you see yourself? Because that's not how I see you. And that reality check can be really helpful. But to get back to the idea that we're in this courtroom and the prosecution is saying whatever it wants to say, we've got to have a defense argument. And if we can have that argument, it's almost more important to have a response than to actually be focused on what the response itself is. And I want to just say, this is one of the things I admire about my friends who are lawyers, and kind of wish I could have gone to law school to pick up. There's a lot of parts of law school I didn't need to pick up. But the idea that we can always have an argument to respond. I mean, if you know a lawyer, if you're married to a lawyer, if you're friends with a lawyer, you really don't want to get in an argument with someone who's been to law school, because they always want to have the last word, and they always have a response. And they're trained to do this. They're trained to do this. It's a professional skill. I'd like to be able to do that, because too often I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. I guess I will just, and then I capitulate. But that's so having a response is critical. When we get to those stories that are in our head, having a response is not essential, it's life-saving, because we really are talking about a matter of life and death here. And I could argue that to a certain extent, it's physical and literal. There are, one of the greatest problems with people who, to get a little dark, who do decide to take their own lives, is they get really trapped in their story. Mental health is, their mental health is a part of it, because I think anyone who takes their life at the moment they do the action is not fully present, they're not fully mentally engaged. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not creating a diagnosis, but it is literally, it is an insane thing. It is not the norm. It is not an example of health. I think we can be very comfortable in saying that. But to talk about it in a more metaphoric sense is that we can live the small, constricted life, and that is a death to our potential. That is a death to the vision we have for ourselves. It's a death to the image of ourselves. Even more, it's a death to the gifts that we can give to the world, and the world needs from us when we're able to live that bigger, better life. We're really to be able to be fully expressed. And so that's what's at stake here. And that's why reframing these stories and having tools to rebut the stories and find a way to squelch them down, turn down their volume is so critical. The second thing I want to talk about before I get into those 6 tools is, what does this bigger, better life mean? And frankly, it's pretty simple. It doesn't matter what it means to me. It doesn't matter what it means to your neighbor, your best friend, your mother, your sister, your daughter. Your bigger, better life is what it means to you. And I want to be very clear. When I say better, I don't mean it from a status perspective. I don't mean to say that a Ferrari is better than a Volvo, because for some people, a Ferrari is a ridiculous car. If you've got kids to drive to nursery school, try strapping them into the car seat in a Ferrari. Yeah, you can do it, but can you put 3 kids? Can you put all their lunch back? I mean, you know, a Volvo is the absolute right car for people at a certain point in their life, and for perhaps their entire life. So it's what's better for you. Just because it's flashier, just because there are magazines about it, it goes faster, you know, it's quote unquote sexier, doesn't mean it's better for you. And so there's a humility actually in being able to say, I am enough with my bigger, better life. It doesn't have to look like my neighbors or the guy down the street or Elon Musk's, if you want to, you know, because Elon Musk is living his life. I want you to live your life. That's your bigger, better life. So let's get right into now some of these tools that can help you live that bigger, better life. And as I said, just to recap, they are context, faith, gratitude, terms, ownership, and our relationship to money. Context. Context is kind of the frame. And one of the ways I talk about it is, you know, the joke about the new farmhand. He shows up, they hand him a shovel, they point him to the barn, and they say, dig out all the manure. And he's thrilled. He is digging, happy, morning, noon, and night. Morning, noon, and night. And the other farmhands come up and like, dude, what's the deal? We gave you a crappy job and you're loving it. And he says, with all this manure around here, there's got to be with all this manure around here, there's got to be a pony somewhere. His context is, there's a pony in here. There's a gift underneath all of this manure. As opposed to, wow, I'm the new guy, they're hazing me, you know, I got to shovel out the crap, and then hating it. And, you know, that's a context. So when our stories are keeping us small and they're pressing us down, can we reframe them? Something I just talked about with a client, for instance. What's the difference between stress and excitement? We can be stressed, we can be nervous, we can be worried about something that's coming up, but can we reframe it and say, well, maybe I am worried and nervous and I'm anxious about it because I'm actually really excited too, because there's a lot of opportunity, there's a potential here. Very quick little anecdote, I had a birthday party on Sunday. Yes, like in the before times, I had people to my house, we sat outside, we sat largely masked. Most of the people there had had their full regimen of vaccines. Everyone had had at least the first vaccine. And so there, you know, so it was safe to be with humans again. And again, it was outdoors, it was fully masked when we weren't eating. If people wanted to take their masks off, you know, we were outdoors, that was all right too. Whatever people needed to do to feel safe. And before the people came over, I was nervous. I was scared, like, what if they ran out of fun? What if nobody comes? It wasn't a big party. It was basically just we ate some dessert and the kids played, and it was just normal. But I was anxious, and I said to myself, wait a minute, are you anxious or are you excited? And it reconnected me with that little boy feeling of it's my birthday and people are coming over. And I loved it because it was pure. It reconnected me with that pure sense of myself. And so by being able to reframe my fear into excitement made all the difference. So that's what I'm talking about with context. And by the way, this is also in my book, Stop Playing Small, an A to Z guide to living your bigger, better life, which you can get on Amazon. A lot of these are in there. The next one is faith. And I love talking about faith. I can say it really quickly. Everyone has an idea of what faith is because we've either grown up in a religious environment or we've seen from the outside what that religious environment looks like, and it's either inaccessible because we haven't been introduced to it, or it's unattractive because we don't want somebody telling us what to believe. A religious structure didn't work for us. There's a lot of baggage that comes with religious practice and a religious sense of faith. I want to cut through all that, and I just want to ask you, have you ever waited for a bus? Because I think waiting for a bus, if you can do that, you've got faith. Just think about it. You're believing something is going to happen when you have no objective proof that it will. Just because the bus came yesterday, if that's your objective proof, doesn't mean it's going to happen today. The bus could have gotten a flat tire. There could have been a huge accident. Any number of things could have happened. But you're sitting there waiting because you have faith that the bus is going to keep to its schedule and there's going to be room for you on it. It's going to come around that corner and you're going to be able to get on it. So if you waited for a bus, if you've ever done anything like that, waited for a friend to arrive, there's faith in your friend. You have faith. Regardless of whether that's a religious term or not, it's an example of faith. And if you have faith, you can believe that something can happen even if you can't prove it right now. So we can have faith that we can change our context. That's another way to look at it. Gratitude. Gratitude is a really powerful thing. In my book, I talk about how we can use gratitude to change our context on those things that have been painful in our lives. Great example is my mother's death. Obviously, I miss my mother. I wish she was with me. I wish she could have been at my birthday party yesterday, such as it was. And so I was filled with sadness and a sense of loss. But I was able to look at it also at a certain point and move beyond the grief, or move in the grief and look and change that context again and say, but what am I grateful for? What did my mother give me? And in actuality, her death allowed me to reframe her life and really focus on the gifts that she gave me, and I could have tremendous gratitude for her. I could understand how much she had been a cornerstone in my life. So gratitude can help us change our feelings about things that are painful. And if we just focus on gratitude for itself and are able to focus on what we do have, we start to grow a little bit. We become more expansive. We live in abundance. And I got to tell you, sometimes one of the techniques I talk about a lot and have done a lot is I make a gratitude list. And sometimes I have to start with, I'm alive, I'm breathing. Because if I'm really way down in my head, if I'm sad, if I'm upset, if I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm anxious, gratitude may be the last thing I'm feeling. But if I can focus on what am I grateful for? Okay, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I have a pen to write my gratitude list with. I have a piece of paper to write on. May seem really mundane, really trivial, but I'm starting to build myself up, almost like a staircase of gratitude steps. That's what I'm creating for myself. And then if we can get to the point where we are living abundant and we can see that in our lives, then that gratitude becomes something that we're radiating out to everybody around us. And I can tell you, it's infectious. People thrive on it. So gratitude can start from something very small. It can reframe the painful moments in our lives, but it can shift us, and it can actually help us embrace the abundance in our lives. And there is abundance in all of our lives. The blindness comes in, our inability to see what we have to be grateful for, comes in when we're trapped in those small stories that keep us playing small. Now, I know I said I'm going to go through 6 tools here. I'm at about the 15-minute mark on this Facebook Live podcast this morning. I'm going to come back next week, and I'm going to finish out the final 3. So come back, check out my class on Skillshare.com. Check out my book on Amazon. Stop Playing Small, an A to Z Guide to Living Your Bigger, Better Life. And I think next week I'll have the book with me so I can do a little product shot. I hope that this has been helpful for you. And I look forward to seeing you here on Facebook Live next week, next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Thanks for being with me.